So on this feast of Corpus Christi, I want to highlight three aspects of our Eucharistic celebration. Sometimes we focus on Eucharistic adoration, which is also a beautiful gift to the church, but today I want to focus on our Eucharistic celebration. And so I want to talk about thanksgiving, unity, and charity. First, thanksgiving. I want you to go back through the last 7 days. Think back, start on Monday of this week, and just go through each of the days and try to call to mind something that irritated you, something that frustrated you, something that angered you. I'll be willing to bet, maybe not every day, but at least some of those days, you can probably think of something, because those negative experiences tend to have a stronger place in our memory. And that's probably a survival skill. If you think about it, if you ate something or drank something and it made you sick, you're going to remember that so you don't do it again. Or if you touched an electric fence and you got shocked, you're not going to do that a second time. And so it is somewhat of a survival skill, but because of that, those negative memories, those things that stick in our mind, need to be reinforced by positive memories. We need to actually be mindful about thanking God. We need to be thankful people, and the Eucharist itself, Eucharist means to give thanks. And so every time we gather together in this Eucharistic celebration, we are doing exactly that. We are coming together to give thanks to God. And even the Eucharistic prayer itself, you'll notice it through all of the different Eucharistic prayers that we can choose from, that there is a movement of past, present, and future. And so each Eucharistic prayer goes through and thanks God for what he has done in the past for us, by saving us, by sacrificing himself for us, how God throughout salvation history has been moving us towards salvation. And then it comes to the present and it talks to us about what God does for us now, in the present moment. And then every Eucharistic prayer looks forward to the future, where we anticipate and thank God for what he will do for us in the future, especially by bringing us to our eternal home. That's an important movement for us. It's important because it is easy for us to lose sight of our gratitude. It is easy for us to fail each day to remember the goodness of God. And so every Eucharistic celebration really is that opportunity for us to be thankful people, to be people who recognize the movement of God through each day. And that leads us into unity. In our diocese now, we mostly confirm children at 5th grade, somewhere around that age. Years ago, we used to do it more in high school. And one year we had a confirmation class, and I was just talking with the class, and I said, okay, so what are you supposed to do after you receive communion? And one of the confirmation candidates said, oh, that's easy, I know the answer. And she said, after communion, you go back to your pew, you kneel down, and you look and see what everybody is wearing. She was not completely wrong. The moment of communion is not a me and Jesus experience. It is communing with the Lord, but the church's liturgy actually is inviting us to commune with each other, to actually be a part of this celebration, consciously aware of everybody that is present in this celebration. And not just present in this church, present throughout the entire world. And that's why in the Eucharistic celebration, the priest takes a little part of the host and he breaks it off and places it in the chalice. It's actually a symbol of our communion with the Church Universal, that we are celebrating this Eucharist today, but so is the rest of the world. We are part of a universal church. We are part of the body of Christ. And so the Eucharistic celebration is supposed to lead us into unity. In fact, in the church's rubrics for the universal church, normally everyone would be standing for the entire time of communion as a symbol of us all being in communion together. Now, we don't do that because that gets really tiresome. But what we do instead is we commune by joining our voices together in a hymn of communion. We sing during communion as a sign of our being in communion with each other and of our common communion with the Lord. Because in this celebration, heaven and earth unite. God comes down to us, and we are lifted up to God, and God feeds us on his very substance. And that's something we really have to savor. We have to savor that, because if we just say it and move on, we don't appreciate the full impact of the fact that our God feeds us on his divine substance. That means we are taking the divinity into our physical bodies. That's why the real presence is important in the church. And that's what leads us to charity. If we take the real presence into our bodies, if we actually are receiving the very substance of God into our lives, then we're supposed to be changed by it. We're not only supposed to say we seem like the body of Christ, but we're actually supposed to be the body of Christ. And so that means the things that Christ did on earth are things that we also are invited to do, especially to reach out in love. And that's because the presence of God, that Eucharistic presence, is supposed to well up in us. It's supposed to build up in us the love of God so that it flows out of us to touch the world around us. And that's why the Eucharist is called both the sacrament of unity and the sacrament of charity. It's supposed to help us to be more Christ-like in the world. And so in this celebration, we come together, yes, to receive the presence of God, but then we're supposed to be changed by receiving that and become what we receive.